So tell me about what is your perception of what's happening in the world of social media? Facebook is about to hit 1 billion members. It seems to be going mainstream. Kind of what is your impression of what's been happening lately?
Well, I think you're right. It is going mainstream. I think that now everybody is on Facebook. Everybody knows how to use Facebook, and the basic tools that you use on Facebook sort of apply in any other venue. Photo sharing and video and chat and blogging. I mean, that's sort of all part of the Facebook experience. So the fact that people have taken so naturally to that means that these tools are not a mystery anymore. But I think that the tools are the easy part. About a year ago, I did a column, one of those year-end forecast columns, and I said, I really hope in 2011 that we'll start to see people not use the term social media anymore, because I don't think the modifier is meaningful. I mean, all media is social now, essentially. It's almost impossible to find any that isn't. So why should we have a distinction between traditional and social media? There really isn't traditional media anymore. But I think more importantly than that is, once you get used to the tools, then the really interesting stuff begins, and that is what do people do with them? Tools themselves are not inherently interesting, but for the last 5 years we've been going through this process of trying to figure out the tools, and we're getting past that pretty quickly. So I've been very interested about the phenomenon of these review sites, TripAdvisor, TravelPod, Yelp, Tribal Voice, or what's it called? I don't know. I can't remember the name right now, but they're popping up everywhere, and they're popping up in B2B and in B2C scenarios. I've been working in a group called Spiceworks lately that's for IT professionals. It's got thousands and thousands of reviews there that have been posted of everything from computer monitors to consultants. And the people who are in this community go to these reviews first when they're making decisions. And this whole idea of the empowered customer, the person who knows so much more than we did just a few years ago about any important decision, is really radical, and that is going to change a lot. That's going to change a lot of institutions, and not just businesses, but governments and nonprofits. And I think it's going to be revolutionary. The idea that when we make decisions now, we can know so much about the problem we're trying to solve, and that flips the whole assumption of the last 300 years, which was that the customer was basically ignorant. Customers aren't ignorant anymore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Paul. And I think one interesting thing is, I have a son in college, and he believes you can answer any question in the world with Google, and he's right. So
I haven't found many that I wanted to answer that I couldn't.
Exactly. So, but the point is, if you've got so much accumulated wisdom available at your fingertips today with Wikipedia and review sites and everything, that in many ways book learning is not as important as it used to be. Education is probably not as important as it once was. You don't have to carry it all in your head anymore.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point, Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way of thinking about it, because when you and I were young, and we're probably about the same age, it was about studying and learning and accumulating knowledge in your head. It's not anymore.
No, and it was 20 years ago last month that Bill Gates coined the term information at your fingertips. That milestone passed. I don't think many people noticed it. 20 years ago at Comdex, 1991, that he coined that term, and we've got it finally. I mean, it finally came true.
Right.
The smartphone, I really do have information at my fingertips. And what you say, about book learning, I think is a very important point. I was at a seminar recently for the IBM Watson program, and there's a scientist there from Google, and he said that within 5 years, he expects that we'd be able to converse in native language with anybody in almost any country in the world, using our smartphones. We'll be able to speak into the smartphone will translate instantaneously and speak to the other person in their native language. 5 years, he said. I had to do a double take that he was saying that in 5 years. Think of the change that will cause, that all these cultural barriers that have existed for thousands of years, all the standings, all the wars that have been caused by language problems, by lack of understanding. I think of how many hours I spent learning French in high school and college, which I was never good at. I mean, I was never good at languages.
Yeah.
I won't have to learn French. Today's next generation won't really have to. It'd be nice to learn it, but the fact is you'll be able to go to another country and get around pretty well without having to learn the language. And that's just one example, I think, of how this sort of universal access to knowledge, to get back to your point, the point today is not book learning, it's resourcefulness. It's being able to find the information you need. And the tools that people learned surfing all those years, when surfing was considered a bad habit, those are turning out to be really valuable tools because these people now are skilled at finding information.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I mean, this is an iPhone 4S, and yes, I've got Siri on it here. I can talk. It is a pretty interesting concept.
Siri is just a first stage concept. I've taken a particular interest in the IBM Watson project. The Jeopardy contest that they did. That is really another dimension to search. That concept, I mean, that's not search. That is human understanding. That is actually parsing knowledge and being able to derive knowledge through intelligent mining of data. And when you start applying that, you start layering that on top. When you think of it, search is really very, very simple. Google has made it quite sophisticated, but you layer technology like that on top of what we're doing now and make that go mainstream, which in 5 years it will be mainstream. And imagine what we'll be able to do. We'll be able to ask a machine to answer complex questions and get sophisticated, targeted answers to questions that we can't even imagine asking a search engine.
Yeah, you're right. It's an interesting time to live in. It's just the next few years are just gonna be amazing.
And to bring it back to what we were talking about with marketers, though, I think where social is set to make the leap, and I see this happening right now, is out of marketing. It's been pigeonholed into marketing for these past few years, which was, it made sense because it was kind of a communication thing. But I'm seeing companies really begin to take seriously the idea that this goes way beyond marketing. We just did a case study with Sprint and with PepsiCo, which together have deputized nearly 6,000 employees as social media ambassadors. And these are people across customer support, across product development. I mean, these aren't marketing people, but they are basically teaching them how to speak on behalf of the company and how to become frontline support and salespeople. And I think that is where, was another area where social is really getting interesting now, is the marketing department is becoming just one of many players who are taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Paul, because I think if you think about how that impacts companies, it's not just marketing and sales who are on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and having conversations with prospective customers. Everybody in your company does that. So everyone is a potential, everyone touches customers. Everyone's listening to buyers. So companies can't control their messaging anymore. It's a completely different world they're in. And I think companies have to learn to adapt to that.
And learn to adapt to giving up control. And where you see the companies that I think the companies that are the most comfortable in their skin about these changes are the companies that have successfully given up control. And said, I'm going to trust employees do the right thing. If you've ever been to Dell, have you been down to Dell?
I'm familiar with what Dell's doing. I know they're very active. So yes.
The thing about Dell, I noticed, is that there's something about the culture inside the walls of that company that I have seen very few other places, and that is there's just an over-abiding sense of trust, of belief that the people there know what to do and will do the right thing, and that they're all on the same train. Wow. And successful companies are going to be the ones who can create that kind of shared vision. I think Southwest Airlines does that well. I think Apple does it well. I think a lot of the great companies do that well. And when you don't have to control your people, when you can trust them to do the right thing, then it's incredibly empowering now that they have all these channels by which they can communicate.
Yeah. I think that you talk about companies being willing to relinquish control. It's gone. Whether you like it or not, it's gone. You have You don't have control of your business anymore. Nobody does. No matter how much you want to have it, you don't have it. You know, the buyers control it. The employees control it. You know, it's a democratization of business. So
but it will take a long time for that to filter through, particularly with the older, you know, with the older people who are at the top of these organizations, and they're just not ready to change.
well, Paul, I know you got things to do, and I have a party to go to, so I won't keep you any longer, but I really appreciate your time today, and it's been fun talking.
I'm glad we can finally make it happen, Jeff. Thanks so much.